Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist, Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Hey everybody, welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts. Phil and I back once again to do a little pop quiz here on the program. Phil, did you like pop quizzes when you were in school? Were you a fan?
Absolutely not.
No? Nobody seems
I'm a planner. I like to know what's coming. So
yeah, nobody seems to be a fan of the pop quiz.
No. Pop quizzes are never good.
No. Well, we want
pull out a sheet of paper. Put all the books away and pull out a sheet of paper. Right?
Sure.
It was the famous. So
well, I'm gonna make it easy. It's multiple choice. Does that help?
That helps. That helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So what we're going to do is I want to folks play along with us, right? So if you're watching the video or if you're listening to the podcast, whatever the case is, however form you're consuming this, it should be pretty easy. Just have a little fun with it. It's only 5 questions, but play along and see if you can get an A+ on our retirement pop quiz. And if not, well, then maybe it's time to
might have some studying to do,
right? To address some of these things. Maybe bring the teacher an apple, and that's not a thing anymore. Probably not. But address some of the things, and so hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun with this. So we'll just jump in and knock it out, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1, Phil Putney. At what age should people start saving for retirement? A, when you begin working. B, when you buy your first home. Or C, once you've paid off all your debt.
This is always the interesting question, because people often think, well, I've got to, I get this, I got to get done. And once the kids are through school, or once they're, and it's, I always throw back, it's kind of that old adage, when's the right time to plant a tree? Now, I mean, it's, so it would have been better 10 years ago, but sorry, you can't do that. So it's today. So I mean, as soon as you start working, and I mean, I even
for many of us, we do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The younger generation. I mean, that is the best time to start, because you get into a habit and then start increasing it over time. And it's like most things, the small increments like that, you don't notice the difference, and you'll thank yourself years down the road when
your
you realize
future self will thank you. Yeah,
that's right. Once you've accumulated this amount of money versus, those individuals that decided, well, I'm going to wait till this is done, or I get the house, or, the kids are through school, or whatever the case is, now I can start saving. Yeah. And it's just time value of money and that compounding effect. I mean, it takes a long time to catch up later. Yeah. I mean, you start early, start, just at the edge of what makes you uncomfortable maybe, and get used to it and grow it from there. So
you can maybe make the argument, Phil, for B, after you buy your first home, if you're trying to save for the first home, and you were doing it early on, but then again, like anything, nowadays, or especially right now, if you're a younger person trying to buy your first home, you probably can't afford it anyway, right? They're so priced out. So, it's the same with the debt thing. There's always going to be something in life. So you're better off, if you've got the job that's allowing you to save, start saving, start paying your future self. Just make it easy. Your future self will thank you for sure.
And start small. And a lot of plans today actually have a default plan in it that once you are eligible, by default, they're going to put you in the plan at a minimum level, typically around a 3% contribution. Yeah. Which I think is a good thing, because it starts people out. They don't realize, and at the end of the day, you're not going to miss it. It's a small amount,
trick, right?
And once you've done that, it's easy to just increase it a little each year. Oftentimes I hear, if you get a raise, make sure you're giving yourself a raise and contribute more, so it starts helping build that retirement.
Yep. So, exactly. So pretty easy, multiple choice there. Try to do it as soon as possible. Once you begin working, but as soon as you can. That's probably the best. Number 2, which of these is the best estimate of how much income you'll need in retirement, Phil? Sure. A, 50% of your current income. B, 85% of your current income. C, 100% of your current income. Or D, none of the above.
It depends, right? The financial advisor's
default
answer response, right? It depends. Yeah. General rule of thumb, I would say between 85 and 100%.
I was going to say, let's break it down real quick. 85 is the one we hear, right? That's
80, somewhere in the 85 to 100%. The way I look at it is this. I mean, what lifestyle do you want to maintain? Are you comfortable with the lifestyle you have today?
Yeah.
And is that what you want to have in retirement? And if that's the case, then you're probably at 100% of what you have as your net spendable income today.
Right.
Now, there's some caveats to that, right? I mean, there's obviously the mortgage. We talked about that. If the mortgage is part of that amount you have today and it's going to be paid off, well, then you can reduce that,
Right.
If you have college, these larger expenses or things like that you're paying on that you won't have in retirement, then you can always make adjustments for that, because we are going to have some of those things typically. But in general, this is one of the areas that often I see gets underestimated by significant amounts. In fact, I was just meeting with a prospective client before the show today. And that's a question I ask: what do you think you need in retirement? What's your net spendable income you want on a monthly basis? And they're running through the numbers and say, I think about 3,000 would be good. Okay. I'm like, really? Okay. Well, let's look at your tax return. And that's typically by default where I go is let's run through the tax return. What did you make? Yeah. What taxes did you pay to come down to here's the net spendable income you had. And they had like 6,000 a month coming in. So my question is, well, okay, so you only need 3, but you got 6 today. So you're saving 3,000 a month.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's just think this through, because if you want 3, but you're spending 6 today, are you going to cut your lifestyle in half? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah. No.
Well, no. Okay. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that you tell me a low number. Oh, the plan works great. And like in their scenario, you don't have to worry about anything. You got more Social Security coming in and you're fine, but that's not the lifestyle you want to maintain. So don't do yourself a favor. Don't underestimate this number.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say if you're going to do anything, overestimate it, because you're retired.
Yeah.
It's vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
You have more time. If golf is your thing, you're probably going to want to golf more. Okay. Well, that costs money. I mean, whatever your hobby is, you have more time to do it. It's going to cost more.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say, do you find most people kind of try to lowball the number when they first start working with you because they
all the time
want to make sure that it works, I guess, or whatever reason?
Well, no, and it's just human nature. I mean, in our class, we part of the class homework, so to speak, if you want to call it, we have a budget worksheet.
Yeah.
And it just walks you through, well, here's the various types of expenses, and you'll list them down, you go through, and, I've had clients do it, and inevitably everyone underestimates it, because they'll do that, or they'll give me a number, but we always come back to the tax return and run that exercise and say, okay, well, this is reality. This is where you're at today. How can we reconcile this? What's the difference? So,
I see a question like this and it's like, 85% is the kind of old school tried and true number that we'd hear. Well, when you get to retirement, you'll need about 85% of your income. And it makes me think about those. You and I were just talking about going to islands, Aruba, Hawaii, whatever, before we started taping. And it makes me think about those little puddle jumpers. And when you get on those little prop planes, they ask you each person how much you weigh.
Yeah.
And you go, why? And they go, so we know how much gas to put in.
That's right.
And there's this great comedian who goes, we'll fill it up. That's how much you put in.
How much does the thing hold? Let's put
here's
it on.
my credit card. Let's fill it up. Right. Obviously it takes, the plane has to have enough, power to get up. And so there's weight's an important factor, but we kind of think about that funny analogy to go, I don't want 85% of the gas in the plane that's taking me someplace.
Yeah.
I want 100%.
I want to make it.
I want to make it where I'm going. So same kind of idea. So there you go.
I mean, you don't want to get into retirement planning on 3,000 and you get in there and everything works great. And then you retire. And a year later, you realize you're spending 6. And the plan that worked great at 3 doesn't work at 6. And now you're going to run out of money in 15 years. Now, what are you going to do? You're retired. Exactly. You got to totally change the plan. So don't underestimate this number. It's probably the biggest mistake I see in planning for retirement is underestimating what you need.
Great point. All right. Question number 3, Phil, you're doing fantastic on this. Big surprise, right? You're a financial guy. Number 3, which of these do you find that retirees fear the most? Going to be pretty easy, I think. A, not leaving enough behind to the kids. B, running out of money. Or C, needing nursing home care.
I would say the biggest concern is the running out of money.
It kind of affects them all, though, right? I mean, if you have enough,
it absolutely does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that longevity, running out of money is kind of tied hand in hand. And
Right.
it's one of those risk multipliers, so to speak, we talk about in retirement that, I mean, the longer you live, the more risk comes with that. Nursing home care. I mean, the longer you live, the higher probability is that you're going to need care.
Yep.
You know, the longer you live, the inflation affects you more, taxes. I mean, it multiplies all the effects of it down the road. So that comes into the other mistake a lot of times that I see made when you get into retirement is underestimating life expectancy. You know, my parents only lived to the mid 70s. I don't think I'm going to make it
hard.
that long, you know, it's a hard discussion.
It is. And I've shared many times on the program, so I won't get into it too far, but I'm one of those people. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to live too long into my 70s, but I'm not planning that way. Because if I'm wrong, I'm not going to be a happy camper either. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, obviously you have to look at family history, your own medical conditions, and don't just look at you, look at the couple. I mean, that's the other thing. You can't, for a married couple, you never look at just one of the spouses. You have to look out of the two.
Sorry, babe, I spent it all. See you.
That's right. Who has the probability of making it to, whatever the longest age is. And like in your case, it's not my problem. I'm gone. So
I'm gone. See you. Have fun with that. Yeah. Not cool. Right. Not cool.
No, not a good plan. I don't think your wife would appreciate that. So,
pretty easy running out of money. B. Number 4, which of these examples best represents a diversified retirement plan? We had a little fun with these. Sure. A mix of 60% stocks and 40% bonds, the traditional 60-40 split.
Yep.
B, 3 rental houses, one in Novi, one over in Beverly Hills, one in give me a Westland. Up in Westland. And then a significant amount of cash in the bank. That's B.
Okay.
So 3 rental homes and the cash. I got off on a tangent there. Or C, 10 to 12 different mutual funds. Or D, none of the above.
I would say none of the above. I mean, it's, so the 60-40, that's a default.
It's the easy one to go
that's
to.
where, and I mean, it may be. So what's the ideal diversified retirement plan? It kind of depends on 2 things. Number 1, risk, what you're comfortable with. And unfortunately that's getting tested here this year. Everyone is realizing what risk is again.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the need for risk. How much do you need to grow the money in the plan to make your plan work? And not that you should invest aggressively because I need to do that. Maybe you need to make some adjustments in the plan because it's not wise to do that.
Right.
But having that risk position, and we've talked about this a lot with the buckets and how you want to make sure you're positioning money, in that, and having our soon bucket money we're spending in the next 10 years, make sure that's a lower risk, low volatility. So as you're going through markets like this, you're not spending from it. The later bucket, you can have more risk in that.
Right.
But let's touch on B because, there's people that real estate was their thing. And that's my dad. I mean, real estate was his thing. That's what he did. Nothing wrong with that. But you got to understand there can be some big concerns there, so what we just went through, the pandemic, there was this little thing of that rent, where they couldn't, you couldn't evict people and they didn't have to pay and you couldn't evict.
You still owed the mortgage.
You still owe the mortgage. You had to pay the property taxes, the insurance. And, so if that's where your retirement income's coming from, what if that happens again?
Yeah.
What does that look like for you? Now, you've got money in the bank, which that's good to have that cushion.
It was drained paying those.
But exactly. You're now using that not only to supplement your own income, but now you're having to fund these houses so that, So, I mean, just understand pros and cons and risks. Not that I'm against real estate, but
and it's it could be a portion of an overall strategy for a particular person. Same thing with the mutual fund one, right? It's not an example. It's probably in a diversified portfolio, but just 10 to 12 of their own is probably not what you need specifically, because more than likely, Phil, we've talked about it all the time, they're probably all the same thing.
At the end of the day, when you put it all together and look through the funds into what's owned, that's really what matters. And I mean, if they're all, 10 to 12 large cap growth mutual funds, well, then no, you don't have diversification. No. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's not the number of, it's looking at what you have. So really it comes down to, don't get tied up with one of these 3. Look at, what do I need in risk, for growth in the portfolio? What am I comfortable with to make my plan work? Then come back to, okay, now that I understand those, how do I make that work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
and I mean, if you've got real estate, that's something to consider, because do you sell it? Do you keep it? There's tax implications, on both sides of it. So you've got to walk through those numbers too. But
I think the tricky one on this was A. It's easy to jump on A and go, oh, well, the 60-40 split. That's a great way to go, because it has been a very traditional thing for a long time. But
until this year,
right? So
where that 40%, the more conservative part of the portfolio, lost a substantial amount of money.
Yeah,
so I mean, it did not buffer the stock side of the portfolio as it's typically done in the past.
And here's a diversification conversation as well, and then we'll do the final one, Phil. But if that 60% of the stocks was all tech heavy, boy, you bad really, shape right now, right?
Yeah, the target date funds, I think, have, in light of that whole 60-40 concept, have made this too easy, where people almost forget what risk is, because I'll go into a 2025 target date fund. That's got to be pretty conservative.
I will say though, my brother's target date fund, who's at the 20 what's the next one, 2025, because he's 62 or whatever, he was surprised he hadn't lost as much with the recent downturns as he was expecting to. So he was fairly. But again, when we started going through it, he was in a lot of the sectors on it were not in as much of the stuff that was taking a beating. So kudos to that particular fund.
Right.
But that's not always the case. And of course, as we've talked about, Phil, they're usually also fee heavy. So
I understand the pros and the cons.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, this was a tricky one, because it was kind of like, well, there's an easy answer in there, but really probably none of the above.
Is that the right answer?
Yeah. Get a customized strategy for what you need, because what you need, Phil, is different than what I need and what your dad needed, and so on and so forth. So,
right. Yep.
All right, number 5, final one here. To make sure you do not run out of money in retirement, only withdraw blank percent from your portfolio each year. Would that be A, 1%, B, 4%, C, 6%, or D, just find a different strategy altogether?
Personally, I would go with D, find a different strategy, because and we've talked about this before, of the rules of thumb in retirement, right? I mean, the rule of thumb has always been that 4% rule. 4%. Well, I mean, that's got tested and said, well, it's really like 2.8, and it's probably, if you ran it again today, it would be less than that. Yeah. So, I mean, it really comes down to that different strategy. So coming back to risk, what is your risk? And then making sure you're positioning assets the right way, having that, and again, back to our scenario, the soon and later buckets. Is our approach to it, where you've got the risk in the right bucket, where you're not touching the money, so it's not going to affect you today, but yet you've got some money that's keeping up with inflation, or general long-term inflation, not necessarily what we go through in spikes like we've seen recently, but have a strategy that matches the plan. And here it really comes back to, rather than just say, I've got $1 million, I can take 4%, 40,000 out a year, that sounds good, let's go.
Yeah.
Now have a plan. What do you need?
I mean, sure, if you're doing
fit in all the other pieces.
Yeah, if you're doing some napkin math real quick, sure, fine. But to your point, if it's more like a 2.8% rule now because of things being changed, can you survive on 28 grand?
Right.
So and is it 28 grand, or do you have $1 million, or do you owe Uncle Sam?
Right. Exactly. How much of that is really yours if it's all IRA money?
Right.
So I mean, there's a lot of, to your point, I mean, it's a good, I call it like this, kind of putting your thumb out and say, I think we're in the ballpark, getting an idea of, am I getting close? Having it as your plan to say, I'm done, I'm retiring based on that. No, I would never do that.
If you're out to dinner with the wife or the husband, whatever the case is, and you're like, hey, we're doing some quick conversation, and we're like, 40 grand, we got $1 million. Sure. That's fine for that quick conversation.
I think we're getting close. Maybe we should look at this and see, is it time?
Then let's go talk to Phil, right? Then let's get on the calendar with Phil, someone like Phil, a qualified professional, to make sure. So there you go, folks. How did you do with the quiz? Did you do pretty well? Some of these were kind of easy, some of these a little bit more complicated. How'd you score? Did you do all right? Did you play along? If not, go back and check it out again, play along, see how you do. And if you do need help, please check with your professional before you take any action on any of the strategies. If you don't have a professional, reach out to Phil or somebody like Phil, a qualified professional who can help you get to and through retirement. As always, you can reach out to Phil at 248-888-7530. He is a CPA and a personal financial specialist, and you can also stop by the website philstaxhacks.com. That's philstaxhacks.com. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, YouTube, all that kind of stuff.
All the various platforms.
All the various stuff. So we're going to let you go. Thanks for hanging out, my friend. I appreciate you playing the game. You aced it. So good job.
All right.
We'll see you next time. You have a good day as well. We'll see you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks and other retirement facts.
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.